My name is Ariana Rodriguez, and I'm one of the many SAS members who have contributed to make this event happen tonight. So I want to thank all of the heroes behind the scenes. This was the first of the bumps along the way that we had with our technical issues. This is the first night that we do this online and it's live. So as you could see right now, we may have some issues along the way, so please stay with us. I want to thank as well the Spanish Embassy for the support to make this happen, but most importantly to all of our guests tonight and the nights to come, since none of this will be possible without them, and especially ARRIOLA and FIOL, our guests tonight, who have been our guinea pigs to try to make this happen. So before I introduce them, let me tell you a little bit about us. SAS Australia is a non-for-profit organization, and we are conceived as a two-way bridge and a meeting point between professionals, academia, government, and institutions of both countries, Spain and Australia. And encouraging an active link between architects and designers of both countries, we have been creating some physical events in Australia for a few years now, trying to create a forum for discussion, knowledge share, and cultural exchange between both countries. However, 2020 being a special year meant that those physical events that we had planned for the year had to be kind of pushed back to hopefully next year. And we had to rethink the way that we engage with everyone. And so we are tonight in an online world. And this has some major advantages, like, for example, we can have some guests that are sitting on the other corner of the world while we are here in Melbourne. We can also reach a lot more of you, but this also has some downsides. For example, that we cannot stay after the chat for a drink and a discussion on the ideas that are exposed tonight. And so, in the spirit of trying to keep this forum alive, I'm going to encourage everyone to please use the live chat that we have activated that should appear underneath the screen or towards the left, depending on your screen configuration. And put there any ideas or thoughts or questions that you have for our guests, because at the end of the presentation, I will be back here and I will bring up some of those questions with them. And if you want to know any more about SAS or about the series of talks that we have, there's a few more coming. Please follow us on Instagram. I think our name is close to the logo, or LinkedIn, and you'll find more information in there. And now for the important part of the night. So I'm going to introduce you to Carmen Fiol and Andrea Arriola, the founders of ARRIOLA and FIOL. They are a Barcelona-based studio. They are internationally known for the capacity to design and deliver at a level of design excellence that has been recognized at basically every single scale that you can think of. So from designing a bench or lighting piece to a master plan to an urban regeneration project to a heritage restoration building, a new build, and most importantly, public space. You probably, if you have been in Barcelona, you probably have already experienced and enjoyed some of their work, since they have created some of the most memorable contemporary public spaces in Barcelona in the last 30 years. But their impact hasn't only stayed in Barcelona. It has reached so far that many years ago they were actually invited to Australia to discuss ideas about the regeneration of the Yarra Park. And most recently, in 2014, Carmen was awarded as the first recipient of the Yoga Architect in Residence in Australia. So you can see that they have a lot to say, a lot to share, and there's a lot of people who are really interested in hearing what they have to say as well. And having been one of their students quite a few years ago myself, I can tell you that they actually are a really interesting couple to listen to. So I'm really pleased to welcome Carmen and Arriola. I'm really looking forward to hear you talking about your own series projects tonight. Thank you for being with us.
We think that density is very important in the city center. And a lot of times in the city centers, there are empty lots and full of parkings. And there are ways, instruments that we have used as grids and diagonals that are used to in the centers. This is the way of developing, and grids and diagonals. For example, this is Chicago plan, the founding of the city in 1830, and the elaboration of the grid. And you see when the grid is much more divided, it is the city center. So it means where the connections works, where the public realm is more important, you find there the city. So the city center is where all connections arrive and people meet. And what happens is in the cities of the states, for example, or in the prairie, in the big plains, is that the extension of the urbanization makes that the center is not dense. So this is a project that Burnham in Chicago did, where trying to build walls or like circuits to make happen density in the center. This is the traditional way that the European city grew, demolishing diverse and subsequent walls. This is a scheme of an art in Paris, the boulevards and the Avenue Champs-Élysées, Cours de Vincennes, and vertically Boulevard Saint-Michel and Sebastopol, and you see the different circuits. This is a scheme that shows the growth of the cities that have grown a long time, like the medieval city, then the historical city, then the 19th century, and the suburban city. And we come to Barcelona, and where you see that this process of urbanization took place. You see in the upper drawing the walled city, and then the superimposition of the grid, and how this grid in the turn of the 19th century, you see below, how has been built and organized through diagonals. So this is a way that you can use when you deal with a new master plan. These are the elements of building the space of the city. Also, a plan of Josely to coordinate the city of Barcelona with the rest of the metropolitan area that now it's going to be done in the next years. So if we look at the history of any city, we realize that the building of a certain number of architectural projects are the turning point of the city structure. We were explaining how to deal with the schemes of the city that affects certain areas of the city to have connectivity and to develop with harmony. But now within the city, there are projects of not urban projects, but projects that are very important. One of the projects that we did was Parc Central de Nou Barris. It's not, in fact, a park, it's a system of buildings, open space, and infrastructure that in this area of 16 hectares, where there is a civic center, sport halls, auditoriums, housing, and this was the organization of this area, that the pieces of it over construction of 8 years tend to be another piece of the city that works and transforms the distance of all these elements, the buildings and the residential areas, into a whole landscape. So I was inspired by Picasso, by the Cubist painting, not for the form of it, but for the structure of it, that the houses and the fields have the same importance. How I was explaining before, figure and ground in contemporary city have the same importance. So when you build a building, you relate it to the open space in order to create a building that has always been there. So in this case, what we imagined, it was a landscape that was bridging the gap, the topography between the old hospital and the roundabout above, and trying to connect on the housing with the stream, the bridge, and the different urban tissues. And so You see, just by chance, I put these two elements together. It's another painting of Picasso, because it was a big space that we built into phases. So in the first part, the triangular was the main element of design, but growing up, it was transformed into a more gentle landscape with curves that uh, was going to the mountain. You see the section, there was 40 meters of level, and the transversal section where you see the connection between buildings and amenities. This inner element, this inner building, was opened it up, was transformed, more than classical, was transformed into a fractal element, a piece of the whole composition that was making connections from inside to outside. So in this lower part, near the old building, the elements were triangular. You see the pavement with triangular places, these elements that, as at the beginning, there was no trees. We created artificial trees. And making connections between the hills inside and transforming and adapting the historical remnants into paths. This is the Sydney Pool. And of course, we did this tower of residential that tried to connect to the colors and the materials of the neighborhood around that were in brick. So there was a relationship between this area that was far away, the center of this periphery and the central plaza, and we had to make that connection in order that people from this neighborhood could arrive walking easily to the main new area of amenities and parks. So the Element Urban City project, when I was, I made this, what is interesting is that when I came to Sydney to be the drug architect in residence, they asked me to make the methodology of how we were working, and then when projects in the city, to analyze them through this methodology. So I tried to make this methodology. Can I show you now? So to be an urban city project has to be a project that transforms the area, and the constitutive elements are the buildings, the street infrastructure, and the open space. So always deal with these three elements. In the qualities, as you were seeing in the project before, are topographical. I mean, you have to deal with the topography in order to connect and make walkable the city, to connect the residential to the auditorium, to the park, and transform it into symbolic place in that area that people recognize and be accessible. So I'm going to show quickly some different projects in order that you could see that in these projects, even the main element is or the public space or the building or the whole piece of the city. You have to deal with these three elements in order to be a successful project that people use it. Before I was talking about the centers of the city, how they were built. This is the main area of Girona, where the walls were there, and the part of the Mercatale in the part below the river. It was like orchards, not a structure, but it was trying to be transformed into a commercial place. So they try to reconnect the northern part with the southern part with a movement of, and the Rambla of the monumental part was transformed into another axe that is Santa Clara axe that was transformed into a commercial street without a lot of cars. And the elements of the composition was a way to transform the whole area, not just the section of the street within the narrow facades of the buildings, but to understand the area as a whole. Of course, in that cases, we had to design all these elements of furniture because they were not available at that moment. And the detailing of the concepts to follow this concatenation of events that the design, the contemporary design means, and to minimize the impact of form when necessary, we thought it was interesting to design the different elements. Another way this is another project of a museum for the Roman therms in the town of Sant Boi de Llobregat, in the conurbation of Barcelona. This happens in the periphery of the cities, that the old towns have decayed, the centers have decayed, and people want to live in single-family houses around, copying the Anglo-Saxon model. We think this is very bad because the main things, the main important thing, we think that is the rehabilitation and the restoration of the ancient centers to transform it into residential areas that work. And in this case, there was this building, and through the building of this shed that we had the firms inside, we tried to recompose the facade of the city. And making a metropolitan mosaic, opening it up because it was the terms were in a lower level, so we were saying topographical because we connect the basement where the therms are and the people visit and the schools go there to the level of the new road, that is the road that goes to the center. You see how this periphery was at that moment. So to make a facade, to recover the landscape of the river, that this has happened, and to try the materials to be the more simple and more to open it up, to save them. Another case, this in a city center is a building in a small village where the agricultural fields, the wheat and the corn are in the center of Catalonia. All this area are small towns, like a snail, and we had the opportunity to do this small intervention. But what the interest for us is that we maintain the existing all the structure, the medieval structure, the remnants of the walls, and to superimpose a new building with the contemporary language and prefabricated elements. So we had to adapt the building to the old entrances, and also it was a reinterpretation of the typology of these traditional houses, where the lower part was an open space where the animals could stay. Another project, this case is more an urban space. It was a memorial in the inner city of Barcelona. You see it here where the tower is, near the Fossa de las Moreras. there was a building that, with the building of the historical city, this block was completely built, it was demolished, and then it appeared this magnificent facade of Santa Maria del Mar, which is one of the best Gothic churches in Barcelona. So the project was to emphasize this new facade and create a connection towards the sea, that it was completely blocked and it was a very decayed place. So through opening the streets that you could see in the back of you in the axe of the city and demolishing that bridge, you could connect an important building to the facade of Barcelona where the harbor is. And then this small place becomes a memorial, but it's not hidden and not and connected with the rest of the city. So it has become a place where to stroll around. So that the language, we think that has to be tectonic, that you like to touch it. And in this case, this kind of tilted elements and with this kind of slopes, it makes the relationship between this tomb and the space makes this special as a memorial. But it has been important to the relationship with the building and with the streets around. In another case, you see how in the building of the grid of Barcelona, the extension on the towns around, a clash of geometries was done, and the connectivity of the old original towns was not possible anymore, and so we had to decide in a new place which are the axes or the streets to open or close in order to build a new space in a corner in a marginated, in a very decayed area, and how to make that the whole area could improve. So we just had to reopen the streets and create in this corner a new place that could be recognized at the size, at the scale of the city. And as this was near a canal, an old canal, we refurbished the street as the riverside. Instead of the gray colors of the grid, we choose the colors of the landscape of the river. And last project that I'm going to show of this, in order to explain this methodology, this is more a project in the periphery of an old city called Mont Blanc. And what we found there, we had to build a fire station park near an industrial zone that before it was an agricultural zone. And we found these almonds there at the first visit, so it's important how you to visit the place and to experience the atmosphere of the site. It was important that the cars could exit quickly to the main road. So we focused the central space like a plaza, an inside plaza, and the same as in the Roman therms, the hall was an inside plaza. So we could have inside plazas and outside plazas. And a little bit we organized the colors of the space with as if it was an almond, industrial almond. And the landscape around has organized the form of that building, that is triangular shape, but it depends of the where you see it becomes part of this landscape. So in order to make a summary, I have stated several points that you could read lately, but in order to deal with this general approach that I was asked when I was the residence architect in Sydney, I would stress that the blue and green strategy is very important to stress site singularities, to permit a scheme that is multi-perspective. It means that can be continue. When a building is done, it has to be open in order to admit a continuation, a new person to design it, topographical architecture to make a welcomable community and to relate residents to the street, integrating connectivity. Don't don't do. We are not a path for buses, another for bicycles, another for people. Not everything together. Try to create density in the center, not making zoning areas, but mixed zones. Organized the building form tectonically, even rational, and try to make urban fabric variations, not to make single houses or row houses the whole territory. And finally, make a symbolic place on the map that could be found and experienced. So I'm going to now, Andrew is going to continue with the other kind of projects that have been created in the same way.
Hi everybody. Hopefully you hear me. Try to go straight to the point and present this second set of projects, starting with an old, sorry. So as far as 1992, and this is the project for changing Barcelona, transforming the city, in the occasion on the opportunity of the Olympic Games of 1992. So this is something that has been said always, that the city used the games as a way of transforming the city. So not only as a sports event, as projecting the image of Barcelona to the world, etc., but also to physically transform. So if you look at the different sites for the events, for the Olympic Games, you recognize that there is a strategy of scattering the four areas in specific places that will regenerate or provoke systems of regeneration all around the city. And this is linked by a new infrastructure, which is the Beltway, which will hold all together, but also providing a new means of mobility for the city. So, well, I pass fast with the different sites. This is the main stadium, which is located in Montjuic. So that was the opportunity to develop all the hill, the final urbanization of this part of the city, and also restoring and reusing the ancient stadium that was built in the 30s. So this is the area of Montjuic and the relation with the city. So it's one of the hills overlooking over the Barcelona plain. The second movement was the Olympic Village that basically now, well, one knows about the beaches of Barcelona, but in 1992 they weren't unknown because they didn't exist. So the location of this village was also the opportunity to recover all these seafront and integrated as a system of public spaces to the city, as well as a new neighborhood. This is in the another of the Olympic areas is Vall d'Hebron, which also was the opportunity to recover an area which is at the foot of the hills surrounding the Barcelona in the north and establishing new connections with the city. Or this one, which is Area de Diagonal, that gives also a whole system of connections between Hospitalet, which is a nearby town to Barcelona, and also taking advantage of existing infrastructure like the soccer, the football field of Barcelona. Okay, and now, well, I'm bringing all these because we participate in the design of one of these areas, which is the North Glorias. North Glorias is an area which is halfway between the central core of the grid Eixample Barcelona and Poblenou, which is a more industrial area that in that time it was somehow detached from the city. So this project was also the opportunity to recompose this part of the city. So starting, this is the site for the sports event that was the reuse of an ancient railway station, Estació del Nord, into a sports facility and also making a new landscape, new system of public spaces surrounding to it. So we undertook the reuse of the old station building, but also a new park that was a site of the station. And this was a work that we did in collaboration with an artist, with Beverly Pepper, the American sculptors. And we developed a principle of making a new topography, which in fact was the work of art and was absolutely integrated with the landscape work. So all of these features that sculpt the ground of the park were part of this artist work, and Beverly was using all these ceramics that is a sort of memory to Gaudí or to Miró work, which making it very, very good to the city. Well, this image gives you an overview of the whole area and the different projects that we did there. So I don't know if you can see my pointer, but this is the old station building with a park around. Then we also did, this is the auditorium where we built the School of Music and a Museum of Music for Barcelona. And this is the new infrastructure that was connecting somehow. This is Plaza de las Glorias, which was a traffic infrastructure which was designed for that in way of articulating that system that I was mentioning before between the existing, the historical Eixample, the grid of Cerdà, and this area of the Poblenou, which besides being using the same grid, as you see that the fabric of the urban tissue is somehow decomposed and expressing very well at that moment how it was. And so now it's all being redone. Okay, well, this is this infrastructure that we were proposing an infrastructure at 2 levels, and also developing a new square, a new public space in the middle. Those are images of this of the School of Music, the School of Music of Catalonia, that was built next to the auditorium. The auditorium is by Rafael Moreno, where we basically activate a structure of a bold structure of concrete as a spaces for teaching music. Also, we develop a system of, this is the lamps that were developed with this project in order to adjust the deflections of the sound so to correct the acoustics of the rehearsal rooms in the school. This is one of the main halls. This is the organ rehearsal room. I go fast in Korea. And this is an image of the Museum of Music that was also built next to the auditorium. And in here, we try to develop the concept of the case of an instrument of music or violin. So all the interior is in this red velvet, which is very much the interior, and the wood, which is the exterior. Okay, so this is a project which is somehow linked to the area, because this is the Gran Via de las Corts Catalana, which is one of the main avenues approaching the center of Barcelona. So in this view, this is the pre-existing situation of this Gran Via, and we are looking towards the center of Barcelona. You see Sagrada Familia on the right, and Plaza de las Glorias is more or less at the end of this image. So this was a main avenue, but instead of being an avenue, as it is called, this is Gran Via, which is one of the avenues coming out from the Cerdà grid. At this point was a highway with a lot of noise and problems for the residents. So all started like this as a demonstration of the residents asking for a better conditions of living, because this was very, very, very difficult to deal with. So the proposal was to transform that highway into a sort of linear park. The length of this sector is 2.5 kilometers, and protecting and solving all the noise, concentrating the traffic. Because okay, so in the middle we kept the traffic as it was, but raising the ground at two sides, and also integrating these acoustic shells in order to prevent noise to hit the residents. This is a detail of these acoustic shells. And also integrated, or part of the project, was a new line of tramway, which is underground. So this is running, it's difficult to explain this without the section, but it's running at the same level of the highway, and opening stations, stops to the right to the residents. Okay, this is the exterior, one of these new tramway stations, and how they relate with the linear park and the residents. This is one of the entries. Also, in parallel, we also buried some parking facilities on the other side, and then you get the access directly to the parking lot, and in that way. So managing the topography allowed us to hidden all these systems of infrastructure into again a sculpted territory and a new landscape. The use of water also was completing the soundproofing of the highway, in the sense that that noise of the falling water was masking the remnant of the noise of the highway itself. In this project also we pay attention to the details and the small scale objects which were part of the landscape. So we developed a whole system of furniture that we call urban fossils, that were very much like topographical accidents within the place. Some of them were later on transformed into interior furniture and with light in it, this is one called Ecstasy. Well, and then now I go back to the Parc de Nou Barris that Carmen described before, just to point this housing tower that we built there, and stressing this idea that this is part of the same system of the topography of the area. So we decided I mean, we were commissioned a housing of 100 apartments for youth and young people in that area, and we decided that the less the typology that will affect the least to the air will be very much a very small plan, very concentrated, so a tower like was the so we designed a tower which was concentrated, and in order to allow the landscape to develop. Also, well, this is something that relates this tower to Melbourne, because this was selected by, for the 2008 Sustainable Building Congress, which took place in Melbourne in that year. So we present, because at that moment that was, this also, these diagrams also gives you an idea of I mean, how the shadow of the tower over the park, one of the issues that we were dealing with. Well, this is then the tower when it offers a much closer facade to the exterior of the park, whereas towards the park it opens, and using this polycarbonate paneling that trying to reflect or to diffuse within the sky. And well, this is some images I've made of that side of the tower to the park. This is a detail of this facade. Well, some of the interior spaces, I pass this fast. There are communal spaces in some of the floors, and the access to the apartments, and the apartments that they tend to be, I mean, besides they are very much repeated in terms of plan, the windows are always different. So from that point of view, you can say, well, that none of these apartments are the same in terms of the relation with the exterior, because the windows keep changing, and also they can be elongated windows or vertical windows, etc. Okay, well, and then this is, I mean, talking about infrastructure, this is a project which is now currently under construction in Paris, in La Défense. There, the issue was to transform this traffic junction called La Rose de Cherbourg into a system of public space that will allow new residential buildings and commercial buildings in the area. So the point was to transform what originally was a traffic junction into a system of public space that will allow new constructions in the area. We like very much the beauty of the place, as shown in these photos, and we try to keep something of this into the new project. Also, we were looking at this Kandinsky's Red Square as a spring of inspiration in order to bring this life quality to the area. So this is the master plan of the area, where you see that we use the junction, the ring, as a sort of a double level public space, where at ground level there is a main square, a red square, and on the ring is a sort of belvedere over that and connected with the ground. And you can also see the different buildings. This is a tower by Jean Nouvel, or those are two residential, smaller residential buildings connected to the area, or this one, which is a commercial facility, or this small one there. So the whole system were locating this new facility. So this is the ground plan, where you see the square, the ground level of the square, and the ground floors of the different buildings surrounding the area. This is an overall view of how the different levels of the public space relate one to the other and with the new buildings. We also develop a system of public spaces taking advantage of the infrastructure. So the under of this junction, where we use as in this case as a playground for children, and in some others we develop commercial facilities using this as a roof, obviously. But always trying to bring the quality and beauty of the infrastructure, which is a very beautiful complete work, into the project. In the upper level, we develop a new system of fencing and pergolas, trying to erase all the signs that come from the traffic, from the vehicular traffic, into something, a new landscape, into a more garden-like atmosphere. So we designed this pergola, which also is trying to adjust the scale of the surrounding very tall buildings with an area which gets more protected. This is just a detail of the paving of the ground level. Okay, well, this is another project which is currently it's in a standby situation, which is in Vienna, which again is the transformation of one of the main avenues of northern part of Vienna, which now it's used by traffic, into a sort of more human-like and public space. So it's somehow similar to the Gran Via project in terms of how to deal with an infrastructure within an urban context. So in that case, what we propose was looking at the surroundings of the area, which is this in the edge of Vienna, just across the Danube River, and there's a lot of fields which gave the structure to the place. So the proposal was to insert that framework of the fields within the street, the Wagramer Strasse street, which was the point of the project. Well, these are some how we landscaped that avenue into something more gentle, more human, and also related to that landscape that was the original landscape of the area before. Okay. Well, just to. And this is the last project we are presenting, and this is a realization that was finished 1 year ago in Manchester, England, and the point there was to develop a public space in an area that previously was a lot for some commercial building, and the developer, in the meantime, go backwards. They install a provisional pub, restaurant bar facility, which is this funny building in the background, and it was so successful that they decided to transform that lot into a public space, surrounding and supporting that existing somehow spontaneous facility. So we designed a system of roofs that were somehow like developing from this existing pub, or the Earth House is called, and that roofs were extending all along the plains, giving also support to new small commercial facilities to define a new area. these are at the end, I think what we did was a great bar and with terraces in the middle of Manchester. Okay, well, I think that this is the end. Trying to mm, I don't know if the conclusion is maybe it's better if is to leave this as the conclusion and pass the word to Ariana, and maybe there are some questions from you. Thank you. It's better to leave this as the conclusion and pass the word to Ariana, and maybe there are some questions.
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure if everyone can hear me now. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for the talk. It's been really interesting, and I want to thank everyone who's been watching for their patience. It's been an interesting ride, especially at the beginning, but I think we made it happen at the end. So there's been a bit of movement in the chat. I want to bring a couple of questions with you too. And so one of the interesting questions that have come up is actually, what do you think of the new Plaza de las Glorias? Is there a good relationship established between the landscape, infrastructure, and architecture in the environment?
So sorry, I take this for the mic. This is an interesting question, but maybe I'm not the one to give the answer because I was too much involved with the previous Plaza de las Glorias, which was demolished. So, however, no, I think that what I can say is that because we try, we try to enter in the competition for the Plaza de las Glorias now. They didn't allow us to do so, and because one of the points of the competition was to demolish the existing ring. And what we were proposing was to reuse the infrastructure, as we did in Paris, or as we are doing now in Paris with this traffic junction, which, by the way, is very similar in dimensions and in functionality. And so that will demonstrate that these things can be reused somehow. And also at that moment, there was the High Line explosion, and so it was. I believe, or we believe that to keep that infrastructure and give another use might be a solution. But they were so concerned about the existing infrastructure of Plaza de las Glorias that they banned that possibility. So we couldn't even enter in the competition for this. So the only thing I can say is first that I will ask for this possibility of reuse an infrastructure which is not that bad, and most of all that it's expensive to build, it's expensive to demolish, and maybe it can be reused somehow. And the second point I want to make is that most of, this project for Plaza de las Glorias, the one which is now being built, is very much in this trend of nature in city, which is something that I think I'm completely against. I think that city is a built landscape, and nature is something different. So to bring nature into the city, it's always a joke, because it's not real nature. It's nature that you have to drain, to maintain, and it doesn't survive. So it's just a dream, and to sell this dream to the citizenship, which is very easy, and they take this immediately, and that generates votes. thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain that.
It's an interesting point of view to see. You obviously know a lot about the project, and it's interesting to hear your thoughts. And certainly, reusing the existing infrastructure would have been a pretty sustainable approach to the project. So yeah, it's interesting to hear their position. Let me bring one more question. Somebody's asking, being obviously architects who have been trained and you've practiced a lot in Spain, but you sorry, you also have practiced a lot overseas. How do you approach the cultural overlay of public space when you work somewhere that is not in Spain, like you did in Manchester, for example?
Uh, well, the places are different, but the elements that we design are similar. I mean, the buildings, the plaza. Um, what are different is the climate and the way people experience the public space. So in the north, I mean, the places that are not along the sea, you could say in Australia or in the Mediterranean Sea, or in the climate that it's from 10 to 30 degrees Celsius. You go outside just as you are at home. I mean, you don't look for a function to do outside. And in the north, functionality is much more present. So, what do I have to do in a plaza? We don't put things in a plaza. We just a place like I don't like to say a carpet, but a place related to the buildings around and to the city itself in order that could be reached very easily. And in the Anglo-Saxon countries, they say, what do we need? We need a pit, we need a pergola, we need some grades, we need some events to go there. So we don't think this is the approach in Manchester or in Barcelona. So we have dealt with people there trying to create a space that it's not only commercial, but it's institutional because there is the justice, the parliament in the same place and offices. So connected with the rest and it has function, but always very in contact with the people that in order to take the promoter, because there was an architect that had worked with us. And so it was possible to have this connection and understanding of what were the objectives that we had to reach.
That's great. I'm going to ask you one more of the questions that came in the chat, and I'm going to ask you one of my personal questions after that. Somebody is asking saying that the idea of covering the highway with a space for pedestrians is an amazing idea, and they are talking about how that should probably be implemented in a lot of the Australian suburbs, where I guess during your visits to Australia, you've seen that very often we have very big highways separating suburbs, and it's quite difficult or challenging to actually walk in between suburbs sometimes. Certainly for me, I live close to the beach and I need to cross a highway to walk to the beach from home. So you can imagine the scale of that. So somebody's asking, what were the drivers to do this? And what were the key challenges that you found along the way?
Sorry, no, I like this question because we were in Melbourne for the Landscape Festival some years ago.
2 years.
And in the lecture that we did, we present this Gran Via project as a way of solving infrastructure within the city. And I mean, after that presentation, a woman came to us very interested because she was involved in the design of the Northeast Link in Melbourne. And that was very good because we keep talking in trying to develop a workshop to bring these ideas to the Northeast link, which was at that moment starting to be defined. Well, finally, it ended up in nothing because, well, apparently that. But I think that it's interesting that from Melbourne you pose that question on how do you treat highways in an urban context like. And I think that that's the point we were trying to make in Gambia project, and I think that can be very easily widespread all over the world because it's a common problem. So please let know to the responsible for the Northeast Link that we are still ready to participate in that.
I'll try. If I ever come across talking to them, I will try. I promise that. All right, and for the last question, I want to ask you something that I'm interested to know. You've basically done everything. So what would be the dream job that you would like to do right now that you haven't still done or that you would like to do again, if you could?
I think yes. I think that the projects that imply to transform the way people live in the city, because we are designers and we love design. Architects and designers love the detailing, God's details in the interior space. But I think it's we like that, but to experience a more complex project where there are buildings and public space and not big, but where you have this complexity that you have this understanding of the city, and so you can respond with proficiency to this space and give it a good place for people.
Mm-hmm. That's a great response. Well, Andreu?
I would say a skyscraper in Manhattan as a dream project. Well, also in Melbourne.
Yeah, look, if you get a skyscraper in Melbourne, they are normally quite complex. So maybe, look, you can get both of your dreams in one go. So let's see. I hope
you help.
I hope you do, and we can see you around soon. Yeah, so I think with this, we probably can wrap up for tonight. Thank you so much again for your help and for your time. And thanks everyone who's been watching with patience. Hopefully the next one will be a little bit easier with a little bit of less problems. I want to remind you this is a series, so there's going to be another talk in, I think, 3 weeks' time. We're going to have SMAR, a studio that is based in Perth. And I'm not going to tell you much about them right now, but they were one of the 6 shortlisted designs or practices with a design for the Guggenheim in Helsinki out of more than 3,000 entries around the world. So very interesting people to listen to as well. And again, Andreu and Carmen, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again.
Thank you.
See you soon. Thanks, everyone.